Hi, welcome to another video tutorial on Tkinter, and in this video tutorial I'm going to be taking you through how to use the grid method of managing geometry in Tkinter. In the last tutorial I went through the pack method, which is not as it's a bit more limited than the grid method, and the grid method you can do a bit more with, in my opinion, and yes, so let's go through our first example then. So I'm going to say button1 dot grid, and then I'm going to say column equals 1 and row equals 0. So we can specify a column and a row for our UI elements to fit into, and this just works pretty much how you would expect. So if I do this for the other buttons, okay, so that's what I end up with, and you can see that I've got these two, button 1 and button enter, in column 1, so they're going to appear in the same column. But on different rows. I've got button 1 on the first row, and rows start at 0, and button enter on the second row, so row 1. And then I've got button 2 and button 3 in columns 2 and 3 on row 0, so the same row as button 1, so they should appear next to button 1, and enter should appear sort of on the next line, if you like. So let's run that code, let us see what we get. Okay, so that's the window that we get, and you can see that that's what we expected. So 1 is in the first row, and the first column. Enter is in the same column, but on the second row. And 2 and 3 are next to 1. But notice how the columns by default expand to fit the largest element within them. So that enter is the largest UI element in that column. So it's expanded the column so there's space on either side of the 1. Let's have a look at another example then of what we can do with the grid method. We can make UI elements span multiple columns. So what I'm going to do with the grid method is set column span to 3. And what that should do is make it appear centered below the 3 buttons that we've got here. So let's have a look at what that does then. And that's what we get. If we have a look there, we've got button 1, 2, 3 and enter centered beneath them. Another thing we can do is have a button span multiple rows. So if I set button 3 row span to be equal to 2, you wouldn't actually want to do this in your in a actual program, because this is going to make button 3 sit in the middle of the 2 rows, so the row that we've got these 2 buttons on and the row that we've got the button enter on, so it will overlap with this button enter here, and that's what we've got there. So you can see that because we've set row span to 2 on button 3, that is overlapping between those 2 rows there. Something else we can do is set internal padding for a button. So if I get rid of that now, because we don't need that to be sitting there, I can set some internal padding on button 1. So I say iPad X equals 10, for example, and iPad Y equals 10, for example. And what we should see then is the button expand by 10 units in each direction. And you can see our button 1 has been expanded with space around the whole button and not just space for the text inside. can also do external padding, and the way we do that is with pad X and pad Y. So if we do some external padding on our enter button, so we can say pad X equals 10 and pad Y equals 10. And if we do that, we should see our enter button not bunched up against the row above, the row of buttons above, but actually spaced out by itself. So we run that. You can see that the enter button has got 10 units of space all the way around it, so it's not actually touching these 3 buttons above it anymore. Okay, so that's just a brief introduction to the grid method in Tkinter. There are lots of other things you can do with the grid method. I'll link in the video description to all of the things that you can do with the grid method, so if you want to have a play with what you can do, then you can just go there. Okay, so that's the end of this tutorial video. Thanks for watching.